Starting now. Hey everyone, welcome to the party. I miss you all terribly. Hope you're staying safe out there. Hope no one's lost their sense of smell or their sense of taste. That's the first signs of the coronavirus. But you're all young, so you should be okay. Oh, Isabel, I guess, got dropped out. She's coming back in. So the AP test is in, you know what? This flickering is distracting, isn't it? It was so perfect before, and now, see, I like it when it's good, but when it's distracting, it's no good. So hold on, I'm gonna switch this out. I'm just gonna give you unadulterated truth. Here I am. This is the real me. Okay, anyone whose Wi-Fi is lagging, that's why I'm recording this. So you have something to refer to. So the AP test is in a week and a day. Okay, it's next week, the 13th. Okay, 11 a.m. I got to check in with everybody before then to make sure that everybody's ready. Now, on one hand, it's tough. I know it's tough to sit and write something in a 45-minute spit and make it really good. But on the other hand, not trying to take away from your struggle or anything, but this is literally the best opportunity any AP class has had ever, I think in the history of AP existing, to pass this thing. It's got one shot. Now, if you were counting on passing with the multiple choice, yeah, you're at a disadvantage. But all you got to do is write one good in-class essay, and you pass the whole thing. You pass the whole thing, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to go over some of the first of all, I want to apologize for not being completely up to date with grading. I tried to catch up a bit. I graded some things. And please pressure me in office hours if you really want something graded and it's bugging the hell out of you. And I'm sorry, but just to give you a little transparency on my life, I'm finishing up my master's degree this month, and the class I was in was student teaching. So it's really hard to do student teaching online, and I'm finishing up a 12 assignment website that I have to build for this. So I have to do 12 assignments in a few nights and build this website. So that's what I've been doing, and it's been a lot of work. So it's been distracting me from some other stuff. I will be done with that by next Wednesday, the day of the AP test. And after that, I should be able to devote most of my attention to y'all. So anyway, moving on, I just want to show you an email I got from the AP people talking about some of the info that they want you to all be aware of, and then showing you what I did on the Google Classroom. And then we're just going to work through one example of the kind of question that's going to be on the AP test. I'm going to do it as a think aloud, and then that's it for today. Okay. So here's the, hold on. Here's the email. Actually, give me 1 second. Okay.
Oh no, am I missing a photo card?
Huh? What's that, Isabel?
My bad.
It's okay. All right. I'm going to share my screen now. So here is the AP's messaging on the final steps before AP exams. This is for me, but I just want you to know what they sent me so I can share it with you and then show you what I put on the classroom, okay? So first of all, they wanted me to share the AP testing guide and encourage you all to watch or it's for me, but you can also watch the overview video, all right? So that's on the Google Classroom here at AP testing guide right here and exam overview. To be honest with you, most of that stuff is for me to help administer the test, but you know, I'm being fully transparent. I'm sharing everything with the class so that you have access to all resources, and that'll give you any information you lack on what's happening, how the test works, stuff like that. Cool. All right. The other thing they wanted me to do is encourage all of you to practice with the exam demo. Okay. Let me show you where that is. Right here. Exam practice. You see that? Okay. So click that thing and practice. Additionally, I have included a few PDFs of past exams, which the College Board took down this year, but I saved them from last year, so I have them. So we have some samples from the 2008 question 2. We have the actual 2008 test. We have 2007 test, and we have the 2013 test. So I put those up, and today we're going to be going over the 2016 question 2, just to show you what it looked like. By the way, David noted that I was up at 2:20 a.m. doing this. But you know what, David? So were you. So who are you to be throwing stones? I get most of my work done at night because when the sun's out, it's distracting. Only at nighttime can I truly focus. Um, Also, there were a lot of shouting people in the street last night. It kept me sort of anxiously awake. So, uh, anyway, back to this email. I am also, I shared the required and recommended resource list with y'all. I'll show you where that is. That is right here. Recommended resources for the AP test. Okay. What do you need? Let's take a look at this together right now. I think it's worth doing. Okay. So, what do you need on exam day? All right. All except this doesn't have profile. So you need an exam ticket email that should have been sent to you, or if not, let me know. Complete exam day checklist, including APID. That's a separate link that you can go over. Device, laptop, tablet, smartphone, whatever you got. One of these. Okay, you're gonna need it. Browser, Chrome is recommended. You can also use Firefox, Safari, or Edge. You need internet. You need, if you need assistive technology, no one in here has ever required assistive technology to be in class. If I'm missing something, please let me know. Hold on, I've got people coming in. Andres dropped out. I see some chat going on. Let me just check this. Cool. And then recommended is Microsoft Word, Google Docs, Notes, or another app to enter and or save text. Here's what I recommend, especially for those of you who have spotty internet. Write your essay in a Microsoft Word or a Notes app, something that doesn't require the internet. And then at the last minute, just use the internet to copy it and submit it. That way, lag or bad internet won't mess up your flow once you get into that writing state, okay? Or even, yeah, so that's what I recommend. You're allowed to have class notes and study guides. You are allowed to use any books we've read. You are allowed to use previous assignments, okay? Unfortunately, a lot of those are at school. Mostly, you're just gonna be leaning into your writing techniques. I just realized, Isabel, yeah, I believe the exam ticket email is sent by College Board. Did anyone get that yet, or has that not been sent out yet? I can look into that deeper. Lily didn't get it. Isabel didn't get it. Okay. Haven't checked. Okay, well, I'll ask about it. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it hasn't been released yet either. It'd be my guess. I bet they released it pretty close to it, but I'll check with Miss McManus just to be sure. So that is for all subjects. Now let's go down to the specific subject that we're in. Oh, you know what? That's it. They don't have a category for English. I think the other ones are more specialized. Great. Okay, I'm going to stop share for a second. So before I move on and go over a specific question, or specific question on the AP test, does anyone have any questions about any of that information? Like Lily, that's what I'm suggesting. Copy and paste your essay that you write on a separate document. Thing is, you can't write it early because you don't know what the prompt's going to be till the day of. But yeah, you can copy and paste it in. As in, you can like open up a Word doc that doesn't require the internet, especially if where you're living has spotty internet. Type the whole thing, and then all you're going to need internet for is that one moment where you copy it in and submit it, and also reading the prompt, of course. Other questions? Okay. I just realized that something I said I would do, but I haven't done, is I said that I would copy my literary device guide over to Google Classroom. So I'm going to do that right now. Because that's going to help us with doing what we're about to do. I'll pull it up and show it to you while we do this question. Okay. Another thing I just wanted to say to everyone before we move into this question is that if you haven't turned anything in, this is literally like, remember we studied the illusion. I hope you all know this. Remember we studied the illusion of the prodigal son, the son who in the Bible leaves his father because he wants to go make it in the city and he fails and he comes back to the farm thinking his father's going to laugh in his face and say, "You loser, But instead his father says, we're so happy to have you back. I love you no matter what. You could never do wrong by me. That is what you all are to me right now. Okay. So any of you who have done no work or like not done missed assignments, you're forever forgiven. Like just make it up when you can. Okay. Those of you who have done all your work and have done a great job, I never had to forgive you to begin with. So you know who you are, and just just turn it in when you can. I understand that it's a very, very weird, unprecedented time in the world. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a question from the test. Let me just pull this baby up here we go. Before I share my screen. Bear with me one moment. I'm trying to get everything up on the screen at once so I can share it rather easily. Okay. Sorry, it's a giant PDF. Okay, here we go. Let's read one together. I'm going to share my screen now. Hey, everyone. Okay, first of all, I didn't put these two on the classroom, but I'm going to do it right at the end of this. I'm just keeping these up right now. The common sources of illusions, which we all quizzed on, okay, from Greek mythology and the Bible, which come up a ton in Western literature. And then also over here, the basic list of literary devices and examples of them, okay? And there might be a few more obscure literary devices that we discussed that aren't in here, but that you can get in the slides. I put every AP slide up, okay? And you can also use stuff that isn't like a named literary device. Like you can talk about assonance, alliteration. You can talk about the sounds like a or and what those imply, like we studied with poetry. If you got it in the wheelhouse, you can talk about pentameter and anapest and dactylic and all those metrical stuff that we studied, okay? If you got it. And I mean, that's more useful for poetry, but it definitely enters into prose as well. Okay, so let's read this. This is from the 2016, so 4 years ago when Pokemon Go came out and the idea of Donald Trump winning the presidency was a joke before it became the dystopia it is now. This was the AP test, okay? So let's read question 2. So this is it. Wait, Isabel, what are you asking? Yeah, this is the whole test this year. Yes. Yes, the whole test is going to look like this, okay? This is the prose question from the AP test. Hey, listen, I accidentally, without needing to, educated you all way more than you need to be educated for this test. But you're going to go forward into college and be super literate. And for some of you, I'm so totally bragging right here, for some of you who don't pursue any sort of English or writing degree, this will be the most advanced English course you ever take for your whole life. So take that for what it's worth. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I could have maybe not eaten that bat sandwich that I had in November, but you know, who can predict the future, right? And you only live once. So if someone says, "Hey, you want a bat sandwich?" You got to say, "Hey, I never tried that before. I'll give it a go." Okay, so question 2. America, I've already admitted that, okay? And I'm better too, okay? All right, here we go. Question 2. I'm going to read it now. You guys crack me up, make me smile too much. I got to get to this. This question counts as 1/3 of the total essay section score, but nowadays it counts as the whole test score. The following passage is the opening of Kiran Desai's novel, The Inheritance of Loss. Okay, they said that they're not going to tell you what it's from this year. They're not going to name the book. They're not going to name the author, which makes it hard for you to reference historical, biographical, period information at all. You're going to have to go solely on the prose in front of you, all right? Which sucks because I know we did do a lot of historical context reading, but they want you to go on style and literary devices alone. Yeah. Okay, David just suggested something which is totally fair, but I'm not going to repeat it. It's in the chat if you want to check it out. But this year, by all means, go for that if that works for you. I don't know if it'll help that much. You really still got to do your analytical skills with the text in front of you, okay? Here's the question, and this is the most important part. See what the question is asking you to do and answer that very directly, okay? In a well-written essay, analyze how Desai establishes a particular mood and setting through the use of such elements as selection of detail and figurative language. Okay, so what am I supposed to be talking about? I'm supposed to be talking about the mood. So that's adjectives that describe the mood, right? Or is it happy? Is it sad? Is it forlorn? Is it nostalgic? Is it brooding? Is it full of love? Is it lusty? And the setting, where is it taking place? And the two things it asks me to focus on are selection of detail. This is important. When I describe something, I can choose to highlight or not mention certain details, and that helps or changes the point I'm trying to make. And then figurative language, that's literary devices. So I can look over here, I can look at these, and I can see if I see any of these here and discuss them. Remember, for any essay, your best bet is to pick like 3, and then make sure they all unite around a central mood. So I would pick one mood that relates to a setting and then demonstrate how it's explained through details and figurative language. Okay, let's read. All day the colors had been those of dusk, mist moving like a water creature across the great flanks of mountains, possessed of ocean shadows and depths. Briefly visible above the vapor, Kanchenjunga was a far peak whittled out of ice, gathering the last of the light, a plume of snow blown high by the storms at its summit. Sai, sitting on the veranda, was reading an article about giant squid in an old National Geographic. Every now and then she looked up at Kanchenjunga, observed its wizard phosphorescence with a shiver. The judge sat at the far corner with his chessboard, playing against himself. Stuffed under his chair, where she felt safe, was Mutt the dog, snoring gently in her sleep. A single bulbed light bulb dangled on a wire above. It was cold, but inside the house it was still colder. The dark, the freeze, contained by stone walls several feet deep. Here at the back, inside the cavernous kitchen, was the cook, trying to light the damp wood. He fingered the kindling gingerly for fear of the community of scorpions living, loving, reproducing in the pile. Once he found a mother, plump with poison, 14 babies on her back. Eventually the fire caught, and he placed his kettle on top as he battered as encrusted as something. Eventually the fire caught, and he placed his kettle on top, as battered, as encrusted as something dug up by an archaeological team, and waited for it to boil. The walls were singed and sodden. Garlic hung by muddy stems from the charred beams. Thickets of soot clumped bat-like upon the ceiling. The flame cast a mosaic of shiny orange across the cook's face, and his top half grew hot, but a mean gust tortured his arthritic knees. Up through the chimney and out, the smoke mingled with the mist that was gathering speed, sweeping in thicker and thicker, obscuring things in parts. Half a hill, then the other half. The trees turned into silhouettes, loomed forth, were submerged again. Gradually, the vapor replaced everything with itself, solid objects with shadow, and nothing remained that did not seem molded from or inspired by it. Sai's breath flew from her nostrils in drifts, and the diagram of a giant squid constructed from scraps of information scientists' dreams sank entirely into the murk. She shut the magazine and walked out into the garden. The forest was old and thick at the edge of the lawn. The bamboo thickets rose 30 feet into the gloom. The trees were moss-slung giants, bunioned and misshapen, tentacled with the roots of orchids. The caress of the mist through her hair seemed human, and when she held her fingers out, the vapor took them gently into its mouth. She thought of Gyan, the mathematics tutor, who should have arrived an hour ago with his algebra book. But it was 4:30 already, and she excused him with the thickening mist. When she looked back, the house was gone. When she climbed the steps back to the veranda, the garden vanished. The judge had fallen asleep, and gravity acting upon the slack muscles, pulling on the line of his mouth, dragging on his cheeks, showed Sai exactly what he would look like if he were dead. "Where is the tea?" he woke and demanded of her. "He's late," said the judge, meaning the cook with the tea, not Gyan. "I'll get it," she offered. The gray had permeated inside as well, settling on the silverware, nosing the corners, turning the mirror in the passageway to cloud. Sai, walking to the kitchen, caught a glimpse of herself being smothered and reached forward to imprint her lips upon the surface, a perfectly formed film's star kiss. "Hello," she said, half to herself and half to someone else. No human had ever seen an adult giant squid alive, and though they had eyes as big as apples to scope the dark of the ocean, theirs was a solitude so profound that they might never encounter another of their tribe. The melancholy of this situation washed over Sai. Could fulfillment ever be felt as deeply as loss? Romantically, she decided that love must surely reside in the gap between desire and fulfillment, in the lack, not the contentment. Love was the ache, the anticipation, the retreat, everything around it but the emotion itself. Man, oh man. Okay, there is a lot going on here to pull apart. Okay. So, before I talk, and I could just do a think aloud, but to be honest, and I will, um, I feel like when I do a think aloud, some people just start to completely zone out because they don't have to talk at all. So what I'd like to do is everyone, please type in one word of what you think the mood of this passage is. Just the mood. It could be a sentence too. Go ahead, type a word or a sentence that you think describes the mood of this passage. I'll give you 30 to 40 seconds, and I'll just be quiet while you do that. Actually, I'll give you a whole minute starting now. All right. Keep writing if you thought of something, but I see some really great adjectives that I want to share. So I just want to go down the list. Deirdre wrote chilly. Yeah. Isabel wrote gloomy. That has two meanings and they totally fit. Gloomy can mean like dark and kind of scary and sad. Gloomy can also mean literally dark, as in like shadowy. David wrote serious mood, but kind of faded. Yeah, I see that. Julian wrote cold and somber. Totally. America wrote miserable. Yeah, pretty extreme. Lily wrote dark but thoughtful. That's something that I thought of. One great adjective. I'm not trying to pick favorites, but I think that my favorite one, Angie wrote eerie. What a great word to describe this passage. It's very eerie. And then Andres wrote shady and mindless. I'm going to add mine. I would call this contemplative. It's very thoughtful. Oh wait, I accidentally wrote that just to David. Let me write this to everyone. Contemplative. I would also call it brooding, morbid, and I mean that because there's a lot of imagery of death. And this is my sentence description of the mood and the setting. Subjugated by the wild / nature. It seems like everything in this passage is sort of subjected to the forces of nature. There isn't those natural human civilizing forces, and what we see is really just sort of a satellite of human civilization in a wild setting. So let's look at a few things we could pull out. I'm not going to write an essay right now, but maybe I'll pull up a little text document. Hold on one second. And I'll open a new one. And I'll just write a few things that have occurred to me over here, okay? So let me make some space. Okay, so first thing that I really pull out of this is there's this extended metaphor. Before I name it, can anyone guess what's the extended metaphor? It comes up multiple times throughout this entire passage. I'll just go ahead and write extended metaphor right here. These are the kind of notes I might take before I write an in-class essay. Anyone in the chat, what's the extended metaphor that's a part of this passage? I'll give you a clue. It's an animal that gets brought up multiple times. Yes, Isabel, correct. The giant squid. Yes, Lily, the giant quid, a big pound note that you might get in England. I'm just joking. All right, so the giant squid is an extended metaphor. Now let's just, before we decide to use it in the essay, let's just list down some of the imagery of the giant squid that we see here. Okay, so she was reading about a giant squid in a National Geographic. All right, there's no real imagery about it there. Let's keep going down, see if we can find some more. Okay, here we go. Sigh's breath flew from her nostrils in drifts, and the diagram of a giant squid constructed from scraps of information scientists' dreams sank entirely into the murk. Can I copy this? Let's see. Copy. And then let me go over to text edit. Okay. Gosh, it comes out in all these weird sound, these weird, oh, it says material outside this publication is prohibited, whatever. Diagram of a giant squid constructed from scraps of information, scientists' dreams sank entirely into the murk. We even have the word murk there, which totally reinforces people who said brooding or gloomy. Oh, I said brooding or eerie. Murk is shadowy. You can't see it. Murk is like the deep of the ocean, right? So that's one description. Let's get a little more on this giant squid. Okay. Over here, we got the big one. Okay. No human had ever seen a giant squid, an adult giant squid alive. That's no longer true, by the way. And though they had eyes as big as apples to scope the dark of the ocean, theirs was a solitude so profound that they might never encounter another of their tribe. Ooh. Okay, let's just copy that whole beast right there. Oh gosh, can I just copy just this? Without... All right, let's just pull a few images. Apple eyes, says Isabel. Very good. And let's also put solitude so profound. Oh God, I had to close this chat. Solitude so profound, they may never encounter another of their tribe. All right, so probably my first, this is another part of this that, could be a mood word. Solitude, isolation, or misanthropy, right? Does anyone remember what the word misanthropy means? We've talked about it before. Misanthropy, of course, meaning, I'm trying to see if this chat. Misanthropy, of course, meaning disliking humanity, wanting to separate yourself from humanity. So I might use this imagery of the giant squid to talk about this sort of solitude, this isolation, and this being subsumed. I'm writing this here. The stuff in bold is stuff I would maybe put in the explanatory text. Being subsumed in nature, right? Being completely lost in nature, not being a part of any society, right? Because you're alone in nature. All right, let's pull a few other images. I'm starting to, now that I've done the giant squid, that kind of makes me, when I'm plotting an essay, say, okay, you know what? I've started with one animal image. Let's keep this thing in one category. All right, let's look at other animal and natural imagery. So that immediately makes me think of, wasn't there something about a scorpion in there? And it was very, very explicit. Let's see if we can find the part about a scorpion. Yes, Lily, exactly. Y'all are always one step ahead of me. Okay. Here at the back, inside the cavernous kitchen, was the cook trying to light the damp wood. Okay, right there alone, I could copy this whole paragraph. Ugh, I can't. But he's trying to light the damp wood, which gives us this image again of cook lighting damp wood, or I should say, trying to light damp wood, is again demonstrating humans conquered by natural forces, right? He wants to create civilization, the mark of civilization being fire. You could even reference Prometheus. Fire equals, I'm not writing this like an essay, I'm writing this like notes. Fire equals civilization a la Prometheus, remember, who in Greek mythology brought fire to humans in order to bring them civilization. But he can't light the fire because the natural force of damp humidity, which is a part of jungle life, is preventing him. Nature conquers civilization, right? This setting is on the edges of the civilized world, where civilization blends into nature's dominance. just coming up with stuff for like first draft notes. But moving on in this passage to the scorpion. Isabel, brilliant. We're saving that. I'm coming back to that in just a moment. Let me go on with this passage, though, about the scorpion. So I would copy this whole passage, and then I would continue. He fingered the kindling gingerly for fear of the community of scorpions living, loving, reproducing in the pile. Once he'd found a mother plump with poison, 14 babies on her back. So not only is the wood damp, the wood is also infested with a predatory animal that's breeding. The breeding of the scorpion and her, quote, 14 babies shows that nature is thriving where humanity is failing, right? It continues this. So we got the giant squid, which represents solitude and being far away from civilization and being completely lost in nature and being maybe misanthropic and separate from nature, right? The cook trying to light the damp wood is twofold in showing nature conquering civilization. Fire, a la Prometheus from Greek mythology, represents civilization, right? And yet he can't light the fire, or he's having trouble lighting the fire for two reasons. One, the natural force of humidity, which exists in rainforests and jungles, is preventing him from lighting the fire. And two, there are maybe scorpions in the wood. And not only are there scorpions in the wood that are poisonous, the scorpions are breeding. So we see an image of nature thriving where humans struggle, right? So it's nature is conquering the forces of humanity in this setting. And the mood of, I would say another mood that is starting to arrive here, another mood is struggle. So I'm starting to see solitude, isolation, and struggle. And then also nature's dominance, which we've said, but I just want that to continue to be an image that we're seeing here. I want to pull out something Isabel said that's really strong and a great contribution. Isabel wrote, even when the fog makes the judge look like he's dead, like again, nature conquering in a way, also that's creepy. Imagine looking at someone and being like, oh, they could be dead. They look dead. Guess what? We live in San Francisco. The fog is very creepy, but kind of haunting in a beautiful way. Let's go over here to exactly this. When she looked back, the house was gone. When she climbed, now right there, the house is not gone. All right. When she looked back, the house was gone. The house is not gone. The house looks gone because of the fog. So now let's, for our final image, we've had two animals. We've had a giant squid. We've had a scorpion. Now we've got fog. Fog is another natural force. So let's go with fog. Fog is also like nature encroaching over civilization. Even in San Francisco, where, you know, we have a thriving major city civilization, fog is still a major part of our lives. You know, you can't fight back nature. I think this is actually a really appropriate passage to be discussing because coronavirus is also an example of nature conquering civilization, right? We thought we were so advanced. We thought we were so, ready for anything. And we had mastered nature and made it submissive to our needs. And then nature shows us that it still has a lot of power. And we are still citizens of this earth and animals that live among the other animals, you know, and sometimes we're subject to natural forces too. Let's continue this passage, and then I'll tell you a cool story about a time a volcano made me feel the same thing. So when she looked back at the house was gone. That's the first part of that, okay? When she looked back at the house was gone. This shows that fog covering the house represents to her the complete, I shouldn't have capitalized fog there. I did almost because I thought of it as a character, like a proper noun. This shows that fog covering the house represents to her the complete erasure of human civilization from this region. And then I would, maybe as a side note, we don't know if she feels good or bad about this. You don't want to get too muddled in like blending ideas, but I might say like Sai's feelings about the, Sai's feelings about this are contemplative and meditative. It is unclear if she mourns the loss of humanity in this region or seeks it. Right? We don't know anything about the character. Maybe she's someone who's come to this region because she wants to be separated from humanity, because she wants to feel herself swallowed up by nature and kind of returning to a more natural state. We don't know. We only know she thinks a lot out there, and maybe it's a suited environment for her, or maybe she's there because she's in a deep depression and it reflects that. We don't have the context of the whole novel to understand that. We only know what we know from the way she acts in this scene. But continuing with this, when she looked back, the house was gone. When she climbed the steps back to the veranda, the garden vanished. The judge had fallen asleep, and gravity, another natural force, right? Gravity, acting upon the slack muscles, pulling the line of his mouth, dragging on his cheeks. So he's old, his skin is kind of sagging. Showed Sai exactly what it would look like if he were dead. Frightening, right? The natural force of gravity working with fog creates an image of death, the ultimate natural force. Yeah, death is a natural force as well. So we have some really good stuff to work with here, okay? And now that I've gotten this imagery, I've got this extended metaphor of a giant squid. I've got selection of detail of a scorpion and of dampness, and then another form of dampness, which is fog, which is water droplets, fog and gravity and death, and these natural forces that are all consuming, right? We've also got isolation. You could go in a lot of different directions here. And by the way, these are not the only images you could pull out of this essay. You could go a completely different angle, and you could look more at the use of sounds. There's a lot of consonants. There's a lot of repeated consonants at the beginnings of words, clicks and S's. You got K's, kindling, kitchen, community. You've got S's, scorpion, sigh, sitting, stuffed, and you could talk about what those all mean as well if you wanted to go that angle. I would go for the animal and nature angle because I think it's interesting to discuss. And then I might write a thesis. This is the hardest part. But coming out of this, I might write a thesis like, let me just look at this for a second, see if I can come up with a good thesis. Through imagery, and it's okay to like spitball and not get it perfect the first time. Through imagery of natural life, natural forces, and the decay of human settlement, this passage, or actually we can say the author's name here, although I could say Desai, the author, who maybe the main character is based on, I bet. But since you won't have the author's name, I said the passage, I'll just say the passage, communicates a feeling of, what's the term? Complete oblivionation. No, that's terrible. Complete submission to the forces of nature and a prostrate humbling in the face of natural forces. Okay, so that's a terrible. I said natural forces twice. Okay, let's get rid of this. So this would be my first draft for a thesis. Through imagery of natural life, natural forces, and the decay of human settlement, the passage communicates a feeling of complete submission to the forces of nature. Yeah, that's actually a good start. It's pretty straightforward, but it doesn't say enough. So here's what I need to add in to make it more meaningful. And size, contemplative, and existential reflection on this decay. I think that then ties it into sort of the greater philosophical point of all this imagery. We see the effect in the first part, and then we see the purpose in the second part. So I'll read that one more time. Through imagery of natural life, natural forces, and the decay of human settlement, so that's setting up my 3 body paragraphs, the passage communicates a feeling of complete submission to the forces of nature and sighs contemplative and existential reflection on this decay. So this all, I show the effect, but then it all has to become meaningful in a 4th paragraph about sighs, existential attitude toward her setting, okay? And talking about how she copes with the things around her through that. Okay, so that's how I would plot an essay. And I've already written some proto-paragraphs here that I could easily expand. I'll just read you the 2 proto-paragraphs we wrote. The cook trying to light damp wood is again demonstrating humans conquered by natural forces. Fire equals civilization, a la Prometheus. Because natural force of damp humidity is preventing him, nature conquers civilization. This setting is on the edges of the civilized world where civilization blends into nature's dominance. The breeding of the scorpion and her, quote, 14 babies shows that nature is thriving where humanity is failing. So you could take that paragraph and just expand it a little bit, and you'd have one of your body paragraphs. Similarly, fog is also like nature encroaching over civilization. When she looked back at the house was gone. This shows that fog covering the house represents to her the complete erasure of human civilization from this region. Sai's feelings about this are contemplative and meditative. It is unclear if she mourns the loss of humanity in this region or seeks it. The natural force of gravity working with fog creates an image of death, the ultimate natural force. You know what? Now reading that paragraph, and seeing how perfect our mention of Sai's feelings about this would transition into the fourth paragraph about her existential attitude, we're going to cut this part and we're going to put it right here. The natural force of gravity working with fog creates an image of death, the ultimate natural force. Sai's feelings about this are contemplative and meditative. It is unclear if she mourns the loss of humanity in this region or seeks it. And that transitions us perfectly into a paragraph about Sai and her attitude. Okay, I've talked enough. Any questions about this process? Since we've made this together, I'm going to put this little proto essay with notes and proto paragraphs, and I'm going to put the 2016 practice exam on the Google Classroom along with the illusions and the literary devices guides. And we will do this one more time on next Tuesday, right before the exam. But this is what they're going to ask you to do. Does this process make sense? Is there any confusion? Did I go too fast? Did you see how I made certain intellectual leaps from one thing to the other? Lily, you are very unlikely to fail. For real. Your essays are excellent. Other people's questions, thoughts about this process? You know what, actually, Lily is maybe, I've said this before, my teaching style is such that if I tell you like, hey, you can do it, I believe in you, you got this, it means that I'm really, really worried about you. And if I tell you like, it's not good enough, you're really disappointing me, it means that you're actually doing a great job because I just want to encourage you more. So Lily, you know what, you're right. Panic about this, okay? You're probably not going to do a very good job. That's how you know that I actually believe in you. It's when I'm encouraging you too much that I'm worried about you. I'm sort of joking, but not really. Any thoughts or questions though in the chat? I'll wait about 10 seconds and then I'll tell you a quick story. Okay. So just thinking about in terms of being subsumed by nature, when I was living in England, my brother came to visit me. Did I tell this story already? And my parents came to visit me. And my girlfriend at the time, she went off to Germany with her girlfriends. So we all were traveling, except for me. I was in my dorm in England. And the plan was my brother would visit me for a little bit, and then he'd head back to California. My parents would visit for a bit, and then they'd head back to California with my brother. My girlfriend was going to go off to Germany with her friends. She'd be back in a few days. And right at that moment, when everyone's away from home, except for me, this volcano in Iceland explodes. It erupts, and it fires all of this metallic and stone dust into the air. And it's all hovering over the Atlantic Ocean and hovering over Europe. And basically, for about 10 days, no planes could fly. And all flights were grounded. And air travel as we know it, which connects the international world and makes us a global community, it ended. It wasn't happening. There was no air travel in Europe or over the Atlantic Ocean. All right. That meant that my brother had to live with me in my dorm for an extra 10 days. That means that my parents had to stay in their hotel for an extra 10 days. And it meant that my girlfriend and her friends were trapped in Germany with no way of getting back because boats immediately booked up and also were incredibly expensive. And I remember that being the first time that I realized at 20 years old that we aren't as in charge of the world as we think we are. And at any moment, nature can throw us a curveball and prove that she's completely still the boss, right? And we're seeing that again in, I think, an even stronger form right now. Anyway, just stay humble, okay? Because we might have built cities and skyscrapers. We might fly through the sky like Greek gods. But at the end of the day, nature is the boss. So just make sure you got a water supply and you know what to do if there's an earthquake, because that's the next big natural disaster coming along with the murder hornets down in LA. Nature is the boss. Be humble, okay? Be humble. All right. I know I've gone for about 45 minutes, which is longer than I usually go. I appreciate everyone listening. I hope you've gained something from this. I want you all to try your best on the AP test next week. If you answer the question, if you make a clear thesis, if you expand on why that thesis is meaningful and just use all the skills we've used in class discussion, in class readings, in gallery walks, in everything we've done in AP, and all of the things you guys do when you're when you're thinking and you put those in writing, you'll do fine. Other than that, I think that's about it. I'm going to pause the recording now, and if you want to hang out and chat, we can chat, and I will respond to the chat as it is here. But thank you for listening. I will post this and all the other resources on the Google Classroom as soon as we're done here.